for the completion of our square block of property. The corner house was the old Odell house, which was moved over right across from the present BaBy Fold office. The next house is the second one in the block, is the present office of the school. It was the residence in which we lived for so many years. The third house sat right at the entrance of what is now the Hammett School. And the fourth house was moved off, this one, out on Route 51 to a farm north of Normal. That then gave us this full block for building purposes and for the expansion of our program. It was quite an experience for all of us to see how these houses could be put up on blocks and wheels put under them and move them even out of town. It meant changing a lot of telephone lines and removing a lot of obstacles along the way. Then the groundbreaking day came along in June of 1950 when we started the work for the new nursery. The first man with a shovel there was Mr. Salch, who gave $1,000 to start our building program. Here he is again, a very fine friend and one who had worked on repairing many of the old buildings and gave us the inspiration to tear them down and to work on a building fund to replace them. These were two of our board members, and many of our staff and board people, and Mr. Lundeen, the architect, all had a hand in this groundbreaking ceremony. Dr. Melvin was our district superintendent at the time, and we had a number of church dignitaries as well as staff people and children here for it. Mr. Graff was one of our fine board members, and he wanted a basket of the dirt to take home with him. Two of our nursery workers, Roberta Cutter, who's now Roberta Ropp, and Ethel Myers, who are both workers in our nursery. After the groundbreaking ceremony, Mr. Rohn and the building crew moved in, and they started tearing out tree stumps that had to be removed, and concrete driveways, various obstacles that had to give way for the new building. How happy we all were to see the start of this building, because the state had threatened to close us down because of the fire hazard that we had in the old nursery and because of the limited facilities we had for the care of our children. So the staff and the board and townspeople and church supporters, all of us were looking forward to this new structure and to the possibility of being in a new building that would be adequate and especially provided for the necessities of children of this age. This new nursery, which is now a part of the school, also included the kitchen and the dining room, the food facilities, the clinic, and the staff garage, and the living quarters upstairs for some of our staff people. All of these things have been adjusted in the years following to blend in with the program that's been initiated, but at least these were the purposes for which the building was planned originally. We had gas or oil burning furnaces at that time, so these old tanks had to come out. Now these pictures show the radiant heat, which was a new innovation in this building. These are copper tubes 1.25 inches in diameter and placed on 16-inch centers through the floor in the nursery building, and they connected directly to the boiler on the furnace so that hot water is constantly circulating through these pipes to keep the floor warm. There are two thermostats that control the heat in these tubes. One is outside, so if there's a sudden change in the temperature out there, the furnace is alerted to it, and the other, of course, is inside to make the necessary adjustments as the weather would change. These floors were particularly designed for the comfort of babies. When you put them down on blankets on the floor to play, The floor was always warm and there was no drafts, and it was a very comfortable situation for the youngsters. How comfortable it is today or how it adapts in a school setting, I'm not sure. But certainly at the time that it was built, it was ideal for the children that were to be in these rooms. You'll notice too that the tile in each room was a different color. The draperies were different. The whole thing was made to be as attractive and as appealing not only to youngsters but to the staff who lived and worked here. And the observation windows made it very easy for visiting groups to see what was going on and to view the whole situation without coming in direct contact with the children themselves. These demolition pictures of the old building, you'll notice this chimney here is still standing, but a little later on you'll see it tumble. These old houses were wooden in structure to start with, and then they'd been brick veneered, and some of them with stucco finish, so that if a fire had broken out, they would have been real tragic circumstances. How happy we were to see all of this removed and all of this cleaned off, and the new buildings appear as they have over the years. Bill had to kind of supervise all of this work. He's grown up with the baby fold. Now we're in the new building. This was one of our cooks, another Mrs. Hartzler, who is also a relief cook in the kitchen. You can see the difference in the equipment and in the surroundings, and what a happy, clean facility this has made, not only for the sake of the children, but for the sake of the staff people who worked here. Gladys Hamilton will show up here in a minute, who is one of our cleaning helpers. Gladys was a neighbor who lived just down the street, and she was our sunshine girl. She went around each morning speaking to everybody and telling them how nice they looked and what a pleasant day we were going to have. This is Lucy Eisenberger, who worked as a relief in the nursery and also did much of our sewing, mending, and that sort of thing, was a real helper. Ruby Ben Snyder was our laundress. Community Chest asked us one time to keep track one day of the number of diapers that went through this laundry, and it was a few over 400. So you can see she had a busy day. There went the chimney, which marked the fall of the last part of the old building. We are approaching the end of this little trip now. There were about 36 years that preceded the first of these pictures, and about 36 years that have followed them. So these were in the early years and the middle years of the baby fold's history. We're going to come to the place here in a minute where we will be getting into another bathing scene. We opened with a bathing scene, and we'll close with one. If cleanliness is next to godliness, this will indicate that we were right in there trying. In 48 minutes, we have looked back at 48 years of babyfold history. From a 19th century Dickens-type orphanage, it has become a fully licensed 20th century child welfare agency. It is housed in a complete set of new buildings, all fire resistant. The staff and program have been upgraded to be one of the finest in our nation. We have never been in debt. We have never discriminated. We have kept faith with the devoted Methodist deaconesses who gave their lives to start this work. Building on such a foundation, who knows what lies ahead?